I am a life coach who, for the last year, has felt no direction for my life, and I want to talk about it. At the end, I'm going to tell you how to deal with this and what to do with seemingly no sense of direction. But first, let me tell you the story of how I got here. Like many people who feel like they were called for more, called to serve, we tend to have to grow up very young at a very young age. For me, I was 7 years old when I started learning the brutal truths of this world, and maybe I'll share that in future videos. Basically, that always had me feeling like I understood a different vantage point to life, like I could see a bigger picture than just the surface of each moment, just seeing a bigger truth to what was really going on. So basically, I always had an issue with authority. I always just hated how I felt like people just put rules in place to put rules in place and to have like this bigger sense of being important in the world when really it didn't even mean anything. It felt pointless to me. And that kind of mindset always just gave me issues in corporate. Like my entire time there just felt like a struggle. Always felt like I was somewhere where I didn't fit. I felt like a fraud the entire time. Every time I was changing companies, on the outside it looked like, oh wow, she's progressing, she's moving to bigger and bigger companies. But to be really honest, the main reason I was shifting so much every year, every 2 years was because I felt like a fraud. I felt like they were going to find me out, and I was like, I need to leave and pivot before they let me go and my performance doesn't fake it anymore. So basically survival mode and just trying to do what everybody else said equaled success. But this is where it gets interesting, and I'll share more of this at the end of the video. One thing that I noticed is when I look back at each job that I had, there was always a common thread happening in the background. There was always an element of me being asked to mentor on the side, which is wild when I look at that, because it just shows me that the divine is always at work. Basically, like my colleagues would ask me questions, and then they would start referring me to other colleagues who would then start pulling me aside. Then those colleagues would start introducing me to their children, and I would go meet up with them on lunch breaks and mentor them as they get ready for college, get ready to leave college, step out into the real world. There was even a time I mentored a manager. It was just a wild common thread I picked up on. I would leave some of those mentorship sessions and I would tell myself, I have no idea how, but I would love to get paid to do that. Like if I could just mentor other people and get paid for that instead of having to go into this 9-to-5 corporate whatever, I would be so happy. Long story short, I did end up starting my own business and leaving corporate. I started this thing with nothing but a hope, a dream, and really not much of a plan. I didn't really know anything about business other than my mom was an entrepreneur my whole life. It just looked miserable. She looked stressed all the time. I just knew that I had a mission on my heart and I wanted to serve the world, and I wanted to get out of something that just didn't feel like me anymore. And of course, I started this thing February 2020, right before the world ended. So it was just there was just so much weird energy, I think, going into this thing. It feels like ever since I decided to press the button of, okay, I'm choosing a new reality, I'm choosing to step into more, it has been nothing but the hardest thing I've ever stepped into. When I tell you I changed my business like 3 to 4 times because I couldn't figure out a niche, because I was like, how do I narrow this down? I can help everybody. And I spent probably over $50,000 in coaches. I was going into so much debt just to get help by coaches who weren't really helping me. I felt like I was constantly going against myself with deciding how I was going to operate my business. Then I was dealing with a lot of like weird client situations. It was just harder than it wasn't a lot of the times. And so because it was so unstable, I ended up going back to corporate for a year, which I told myself, I'm like, okay, just one more year and we're going to figure this out and we're going to come back into the business. And that's what I did. But it continued to be a rocky road. And I really was like, what am I going to do? And I kind of surrendered. And not long after that, a dream opportunity that I had forgot about, that I had applied to years before, but it was a really terrible application. It was like one of the worst audition videos you could ever make, but I didn't realize even just by submitting that application, I planted a seed. And right when I needed it the most, that seed freaking planted. And that seed was me getting to work for a Tony Robbins company. Now, this is no shade to Tony Robbins. I'm still a huge fan of him and I respect him greatly. But one of the companies that I got to work for that I will not name the name of was a hot mess. And that experience really rocked me in a lot of ways. So let's rewind. I was miserable in corporate. I start my business. It's a struggle. I go back to corporate. That's a struggle. I started my business again, repivoting all the time. It's just constantly a struggle. And so this beacon of light comes in, this Tony Robbins company, and I feel like, oh my God, things are finally turning around. They're finally happening for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm over the moon. It feels really cool to say that I have that on my resume. I helped a lot of people. I got to be on stage in front of hundreds of people. It taught me a lot. And I swear, as fast as that dream came in, it seemed to just go away just as fast. Started being asked to be in rooms where they wanted my opinion, and I was not holding back. And before I know it, I was let go, and that's okay. I made my peace with it. But in the moment of that happening, I was dropped to my knees because it just made me question everything. And this was last November, so November 2023. Felt just in a really dark place and not sure if I should even be a coach anymore. Was I wrong about this whole thing? My purpose that I felt like I was given, or the calling that I got, did I hear it wrong? Was I actually never meant to be a coach and really I was meant to shift into something else? It was just a really painful period for me in my life. And I felt like my entire identity of who I thought I was supposed to be shattered. But at the same time, a couple months into this opportunity, it felt weird to me, like something felt wrong about it. And sure enough, I started seeing a lot of unethical things. And so when I spoke on it and then they let me go, it was almost like I dodged a bullet in a way. So I'm very grateful. Hindsight is always 2020. But at the time, I'm sitting there like, what am I going to do? And I just felt so lost. And so I started leaning into my other passions, my other interests, because I was like, well, maybe the world doesn't want me to be a coach. Like maybe that's not what I'm meant to do. So for the last year, what I did is I shifted into a completely different direction. I'm really into yoga. I've done yoga for, at the time, it was over 16 years. And so I was like, well, maybe I should become a yoga teacher. Like maybe I should dive into embodiment and somatic healing and help people connect to themselves that way. I even started diving into certifications for mobility and somatic therapy, body healing. That just really felt good to me because it has helped me so much in my own journey. And this is where life gets funny. So I had tapped into this probably around like end of November, December of last year. I mean, I was intensive with it almost every single day, studying, learning, practicing, getting these certifications. I'm really in it and I'm starting to feel like, okay, my life is rebuilding. Maybe this is what I was meant to do all along, the direction that I was not seeing. Well, then cut to Costa Rica intensive, July of this year, 2024. I am in the middle of this intensive getting certified as a yoga instructor. I'm out in the backyard of this house where we're all staying. I'm just by myself connecting with nature, meditating, feeling really good on this lunch break that we had. And I think because I was in such a chill vibe, I was just not expecting anything and I was in such a good place with myself, a download came in that I can never, ever, ever forget. This voice said to me, stop ignoring your gifts. Your medicine is in your voice, not your body. I didn't 100% know what it meant in that moment, but I soaked it in and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Here I was thinking I was really moving in the right direction. I'd finally found my purpose. I had made peace with the old company that I was at. I made peace with my business that just wasn't working. I'd made peace with my corporate journey. All is forgiven. All is well. I now know where I'm going. And then this freaking voice comes in and is basically like, nope, pivot again. I just had this strong feeling like this entire last year, I don't want to say was wasted because I became stronger in a lot of these areas, really learned how to ground myself, which feels purpose-filled. But I was like, what am I supposed to do? When that download came in, I did trust it, but I was definitely a little annoyed. I thought I was moving correctly and now you're telling me to pause and kind of go back. So what do I do? July was me finishing out my certifications, really bringing everything to a close, part of August as well, because there was some teaching elements involved to finish out that certification. But after that, so like mid-August onward, here's what has been happening since. There's this saying that goes, if you don't need a savior, you can't be saved. And so what was happening for me is that I was brought to my knees more times than I can count for like a month straight, just bawling my head off, feeling hopeless, feeling down, being a victim in my life, feeling the most depressed I'd ever felt. It was just a really low place. I got to the point where I couldn't cry anymore. I started getting sick of hearing myself feel like a victim and sorry for myself, and I couldn't sit in it anymore. So I went from crying to asking questions. I started asking, how do you want me to move? I just felt totally surrendered because at this point I was like, I have nothing to lose. What's wild is really the only big signs I've gotten are to get back on YouTube. It's really been my only steps. It felt exciting, but at the time I didn't really know anything about YouTube. All I knew was that I had started my channel back in 2020 when I first started my business because I felt like I was supposed to have a page on here, but it was just so all over the place. No thumbnails matched, like there was no theme. And it was basically me repurposing content from other platforms and just sticking it on YouTube and not trying to build a community at all. Like there was just so many things I was doing wrong with it. But I remember telling myself, I think if I went all in on it, I could do it right and I would do it the right way. Then I just kept going on my merry little way and focusing on every other platform. So it's funny how life comes back around. When I first got the message to dive back into YouTube, I went back to my other page, but not a lot was happening. I think it's because that page was kind of burnt out, maybe not, but it just didn't feel like me. It felt like it was harboring all this old energy and old 2020 energy. So there we go. What I decided to do was start again all over. And what you're seeing right now is that page. Essentially, this is my rebirth, my restart into a new brand and a new place where it feels like I'm more meant to be. I don't have much of a plan other than just showing up on YouTube consistently and sharing messages and stories that can hopefully help others who might be feeling in similar places. I'm really moving guided in this next chapter versus in survival mode and doing what everybody else I felt like was telling me to do to be successful. What I love is that this brand is so inspired by my faith in this process. In Your Favor came to me. It was given to me. It's not something I came up with. Somehow, some way, everything in our life really is working out for us in our favor, even if it doesn't make any sense. I'm right now really trying to look at this entire almost 5-year journey now of this business as a divine blessing, because maybe all of that was just the starting point, trial and error and practice for where I'm headed. I believe that for you too, in your life and your circumstances, all of it was meant to bring you here. And so if we can find the gratitude in it, we can find the purpose in it. So what advice do I have for you? Sometimes we have to let go of control and let something greater take over in order for us to go where we need to go. So if there's part of you that feels like you're fighting and you're trying to hold on to something and you're maybe mad that things aren't working out how you want and it's making you question everything, well then maybe that's exactly what has to happen for your new world to evolve. The second thing is ask bigger, more empowering questions. Wherever you are right now, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? I want you to ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? What breakthrough is this breakdown trying to take me to? And number 3, if you get what seems like a step, even if it's small, even if it makes no sense, take it. Take whatever step you have, because when we're depressed and feeling stuck, it's because there's zero movement happening. Maybe the step you're getting doesn't make any sense, but maybe you're not supposed to have the clarity of what it means yet. For a long time, my step was literally go take a walk or go to that pickleball event that you don't want to go to, but you feel like you should because you should be a good supportive girlfriend. And then the signs showed up there. I can't make this up. I promise you there's a plan for you. There's a plan for me. These are the steps that I'm taking that are saving me day by day and keeping me in this game and having me show up here consistently, because these are the steps that I have. I would love to have you join me on this journey. Please subscribe, like, share this message with anybody that you feel like it could resonate with. And in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. I have plenty that are in the works to continue empowering you on your journey, but I do have some on my channel already that you can dive into and enjoy. So thanks for watching.